Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Marcus Jefferson, CEO of a thriving New York tech company, surveyed his empire from his glass-walled office on the 35th floor. The morning sun reflected off the skyscrapers, illuminating the crowded streets and speeding cars. Marcus was used to this view. He saw the city as he saw his company, every detail meticulously controlled, every action orchestrated to maximize success. Yet, that morning, something was troubling him. Anonymous complaints had been circulating for several weeks. Some employees were behaving arrogantly, others seemed to be ignoring important clients, and a few appeared to be cheating to get promotions. Marcus, a man of numbers and logic, knew that the reports only showed part of the truth. He wanted to see the company as it truly was, behind the suits and the facades of politeness. An unusual idea took root in his mind. What if, to truly understand his employees, he became invisible to them? He decided to slip into anonymity. In a company closet, he donned a worn janitor's uniform, adjusted an old cap, and picked up a broom. He changed his demeanor, his posture, his voice, preparing to embody someone he wasn't. He was no longer Marcus Jefferson, the respected and feared CEO, he was simply a face among many. The moment he stepped into the bustling corridors of his headquarters, he was struck by a life he'd never truly witnessed. Employees talked, laughed, got worked up, and sometimes whispered secrets that no hierarchy was meant to hear. He saw Derek Collins, an ambitious executive, openly criticizing a colleague, believing no one was listening. He saw Lily Harper, a junior assistant, handling a difficult complaint with admirable patience. He saw Julia Benson, a discreet analyst, working late to help a colleague without ever seeking recognition. Every moment fascinated him. Marcus began to understand that his company wasn't simply a profit-making machine, it reflected the lives, ambitions, sacrifices, and sometimes betrayals of those who kept it running day after day. He overheard conversations he would never have heard from his office, whispers about secret projects, discussions about personal struggles, complaints about manipulative colleagues. But what surprised Marcus most was the resilience and humanity of these employees, invisible to management. The silent heroes he had always overlooked were there, every day, carrying the company on their shoulders. And for the first time, Marcus felt that power resided not in his office, nor in his financial decisions, but in his ability to understand and protect those who worked for him. At the end of the day, Marcus put away his broom, changed back into his CEO suit, and resumed his usual posture. But he was no longer the same man. What he had discovered would transform his company and his leadership style. He had learned a lesson that money and power can never teach. To truly lead, you had to know your employees not as lines on a payroll, but as human beings. Marcus Jefferson, CEO of Jefferson Technologies, stared at the clock in his glass-walled office on the 35th floor. It was 7 in the morning, and New York was waking up under a pearly gray sky. The streets below teemed with cars, taxis, and hurried pedestrians, but Marcus felt a strange emptiness. He wasn't really there to watch over the city, but to observe his company in a completely new way. For several weeks, anonymous complaints had been circulating. They spoke of favoritism, harassment among colleagues, and dishonesty in certain departments. For Marcus, used to controlling everything through reports and figures, these accusations seemed vague, but he had a bold idea. If I want to know the truth, I must see it with my own eyes, he murmured to himself. He went down to the staff closet and put on a janitor's uniform, a wrinkled gray shirt, slightly baggy black pants, and a worn cap. He picked up a broom and adjusted his posture to look like someone who had just been hired. Every movement was deliberate, he had to disappear into the background. Marcus Jefferson, the respected CEO, was giving way to Marcus, Mike, Jefferson, the new janitor. As soon as he stepped into the corridor, he was struck by the contrast, the laughter, the whispers, the animated discussions, and sometimes the sighs of frustration. No one ignored him, but no one really looked at him. He spotted Lily Harper, a customer service assistant, calming down an angry customer. "Sir, I understand your frustration, but I assure you that we will resolve this problem immediately," she said gently, her voice firm but soothing. The client, a man in his 40s wearing a suit, shook his head but eventually accepted his solution. Marcus watched, impressed. How many CEOs could have remained calm and diplomatic in a similar situation? Then he saw Derek Collins, an executive in the finance department, speaking in a low voice but loud enough for Marcus to hear. "If I succeed in sabotaging this project, no one will ever know that I manipulated the figures. And I'll get promoted." A shiver ran through Marcus. These walls, these employees, this hierarchy, he thought he knew everything, but he had just discovered a world that no report could reveal. Walking through the corridors, broom in hand, he realized that his company wasn't just a profit-making machine, it was alive, made up of lives, sacrifices, small injustices, and great passions. He no longer saw employees, but stories, struggles, and unsung heroes. At the end of his first day incognito, Marcus returned home, his mind reeling. He already knew he could never run his business the same way again. To truly lead, he needed to know these unseen lives, understand these human stories, and act justly. The next morning, Marcus resumed his role as an incognito janitor. Every step in the corridors felt strangely familiar, but he was surprised to notice details he'd never seen from his office. The walls were covered with notes, motivational posters, and small drawings left by employees for their own amusement. The coffee machines creaked under the hurried hands of workers, and the informal conversations revealed a world of quiet effort. As he swept near the analytics department, Marcus saw Julia Benson, a young analyst with a focused gaze, surrounded by stacks of files. She sighed as she checked complicated figures. "Julia, do you need some help?" asked a colleague, Kevin, a developer in the IT department, timidly. "No, thank you, Kevin. If I don't finish before the 10 a.m. meeting, I'm going to get into trouble again. My brother is counting on me for his treatment," she murmured, her voice almost breaking. Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. He hadn't known that his employees carried such heavy personal burdens, and yet they worked tirelessly. Hidden within this was an invisible force that truly kept the company running. Further along in the hall, he surprised Lily Harper, still smiling despite her fatigue, helping a colleague to organize some bulky files. "You should rest a little, Lily, you're working too much," another employee warned her. "I can't. We have an important project, and I want everything to be perfect for our clients." Marcus realized that it wasn't the position or title that made an employee valuable, but the passion and dedication they put into their work, often invisible to superiors. But Marcus's incognito also allowed him to see the darker aspects. Derek Collins, ever the sly one, was discussing a project with another executive. "If Lily succeeds, she'll be the one receiving all the praise. We have to make sure her efforts go unnoticed." Marcus mentally noted every detail. He now saw the true dynamic of his company: silent heroes who gave their all, and opportunists ready to betray in order to climb the ranks. At noon, he settled into the small break room, listening to the informal conversations. Employees were talking about their children, their financial difficulties, and their ambitions. He heard Robert Daniels, a quiet maintenance worker, explain that he was organizing a collection for the neighborhood's homeless. "We cannot stand idly by while people suffer right next to us," he said with quiet conviction. Marcus was struck by the scale of these invisible actions. His company, which he had always seen as a profit machine, was in reality a human community full of interconnected lives, sacrifices, and solidarity. At the end of the day, Marcus went home, his heart filled with new perspectives. Every employee had a story. Every smile, every sigh, every gesture mattered. And he knew that to be a true leader, he had to know those stories, acknowledge them, and act with fairness and respect. On the third day of his incognito, Marcus Jefferson began to understand the true value of his company. Every corridor he walked down, every conversation he overheard, revealed lives he had never truly seen from his office. He now saw the company not as a place of numbers and results, but as an ecosystem of struggles, sacrifices, and dedication. While he was cleaning the main hall, he heard a heated discussion near the marketing department. Julia Benson, the analyst he had noticed, was talking quietly with a colleague. "I know I should ask for help, but, if I don't finish this report tonight, my brother won't be able to start his treatment tomorrow." Kevin, the developer, shook his head. "Julia, you shouldn't be carrying all this alone." "I have no choice, Kevin. We don't have enough time and I can't count on my family to help." "But I want it to be perfect." Marcus felt a profound sense of admiration. This young woman, so unassuming, dedicated her personal life and courage to serving others, without ever seeking recognition. She was an unseen hero in her endeavor. Then he went to the archives room and saw Robert Daniels, the maintenance worker, sorting clothes and blankets. Intrigued, Marcus watched him silently. "It's for tomorrow's collection," Robert explained to a surprised colleague. "Many people in this neighborhood sleep outside. I want them to at least have a warm blanket." Marcus was moved by this initiative. This humble and discreet man contributed far beyond his official duties. He understood that it is these silent actions, these small gestures of humanity, that give real meaning to an undertaking. But his anonymity also allowed him to witness the injustice and betrayal. Derek Collins was speaking in hushed tones with another executive. "If Julia succeeds with this project, I'm the one who should benefit. We need to manipulate the figures to make her look incompetent." Marcus gripped the broom in his hands. He had just discovered the hidden side of his company, admirable, loyal and devoted employees, but also opportunists ready to do anything to rise to the top. As he walked towards the cafeteria, Marcus overheard a conversation that surprised him even more. Lily Harper was talking to a new employee. "You know, I don't do this for the praise. If every customer leaves satisfied, that's already my reward." Marcus finally understood a crucial truth: true leadership isn't based on title or power, but on the ability to inspire, recognize, and protect those who work behind the scenes. The unsung heroes of his company weren't who he had thought they were, but ordinary, passionate, and courageous employees who gave their all without ever complaining. That evening, as he shed his janitorial uniform and donned his CEO suit, Marcus reflected deeply. He knew his role was about to change. He could no longer simply manage numbers and strategies. He had to understand and value the true strength of his company, the human lives that truly brought it to life. On the fourth day of his incognito, Marcus Jefferson felt an unusual heaviness in the air. As he walked the corridors with his broom, he began to distinguish not only the silent heroes, but also the shadows of betrayal that lurked within his company. As he passed by the finance department, Marcus overheard Derek Collins in conversation with Karen Wallace, another executive. "Look, if we falsify these reports before tomorrow's meeting, no one will ever know the figures are incorrect. All the credit will go to us," Derek murmured, a cold smile on his lips. Karen nodded, looking satisfied. "And Lily Harper won't have a chance to stand out. Everything is in place for us to be promoted." Marcus felt a dull anger rising within him, but he remembered his role, observer. He couldn't intervene now. He needed to understand the extent of the manipulation. Later, in the break room, he heard rumors about Julia Benson. A group of young employees were whispering. "Julia thinks she's indispensable, but if Derek succeeds in discrediting her, she'll lose everything." Marcus gripped the broom, realizing that these betrayals weren't just acts of greed, but direct attacks on employees who were giving their best. Loyalty and humanity were constantly threatened by ambition and jealousy. As he headed towards the archives, Marcus watched Robert Daniels, ever discreet, meticulously arranging the supplies. He smiled at the man's sincerity and dedication, a stark contrast to Derek and Karen's underhanded schemes. Every action Robert took, every gesture from Julia and Lily, now carried even greater weight. During his break, Marcus sat in a corner and reflected. He realized that his company wasn't just a workplace, it was an invisible battlefield. Betrayal and manipulation coexisted with courage and loyalty, and he now understood that the role of a true leader wasn't limited to strategy or profits. It was about protecting those who deserved it and righting unseen wrongs. Before leaving, Marcus observed one last scene. Derek Collins dropped documents on the floor as he left, a satisfied smile on his face. Marcus, hidden in a corner, took a deep breath. What he had seen today would determine his actions tomorrow. He knew he had to strike a balance, reward the loyal, neutralize the manipulators, and restore justice to his company. Returning home, his heart heavy but resolute, Marcus knew he had just grasped a crucial truth. Behind every apparent success, every impeccable report, lay complex human stories, betrayals, and unsung heroes. And he could no longer ignore any of these realities. On the 5th day of his incognito, Marcus Jefferson realized that his role went beyond mere observation. He now saw the contrast between betrayals and silent devotion, and he began to recognize the true pillars of his enterprise. As he passed by the marketing department, he spotted Lily Harper deep in discussion with a particularly demanding client. The client's voice was irritated, almost threatening. "I don't accept this delay. You must resolve this issue now, otherwise." Lily, impassive, calmly replied, "Sir, I understand your frustration, but we are doing everything we can to resolve this as quickly as possible. I assure you that your satisfaction is our priority." Marcus watched the client gradually soften, impressed by Lily's patience and empathy. She acted without worrying about recognition or the opinions of her superiors. Then he encountered Julia Benson, who, despite the visible fatigue on her face, continued to sort through complex reports and organize additional projects to help her colleagues. Marcus was struck by the quiet strength of this young woman. Every gesture, every decision she made, demonstrated a quiet courage and a determination to make the company better. Robert Daniels, always discreet, was now attracting Marcus's attention for other reasons. He was organizing a food drive for the homeless in the neighborhood around the company, involving several colleagues in this act of solidarity. Marcus realized that true influence wasn't limited to senior positions. Robert inspired, motivated, and transformed his environment by example. Marcus paused in a corridor and reflected on everything he had observed. The unsung heroes were everywhere, in their everyday actions, in the way they supported others, in the respect they showed for the company despite the betrayals and manipulations around them. These employees deserved recognition and protection, but no one seemed to see them. Later, while sweeping near the elevators, Marcus overheard a conversation between two employees. "Did you see what Lily did for Client Smith this morning? Without her, we would have lost that contract." "Yes, she's incredible. But nobody ever says that. Everyone only looks at those who shout or manipulate the numbers." Marcus felt a new determination awaken within him. He knew he couldn't remain a mere spectator. He had to act so that these silent heroes would be recognized, so that justice and fairness would finally prevail in his company. Leaving the office that evening, Marcus shed his janitorial uniform and donned his CEO suit, his heart filled with a firm resolve. He was going to transform his approach to leadership. The unsung heroes were no longer invisible to him. And he was ready to stand up for their worth, even if it meant confronting those who had betrayed their trust. On the 6th day, Marcus Jefferson sensed that the tension within the company was reaching a new level. His role as an undercover janitor allowed him to see things that even the most detailed reports could never have revealed: sabotage, underhanded alliances, and employees playing a dangerous game behind their colleagues' backs. As he passed by the finance department, Marcus heard Derek Collins speaking in an icy tone to Karen Wallace. "If Julia succeeds with this project, we'll lose our chance to shine. I've found a way to falsify some figures to make her look incompetent. No one will ever know it was me." Karen nodded with a knowing smile. Marcus felt a burning anger rising within him. These maneuvers weren't simply ethically wrong, they threatened lives and careers. He mentally noted every detail, every name, every plan, knowing that what he did next had to be precise and just. A few hours later, in the break room, Marcus watched Lily Harper help a young intern who seemed lost with a presentation for the next day's important client. "Don't worry, I'll show you how to organize the data. We'll succeed together," she said patiently. Marcus felt a deep sense of admiration. Here were loyal employees, ready to give everything for the company and their colleagues, while others, like Derek, sought to rise at the expense of others. Later, Marcus witnessed a disturbing scene. Derek Collins approached Julia's desk and subtly slipped a file onto her keyboard. "We'll see tomorrow if you manage to do something with that," he murmured, a mocking smile on his face. Marcus held his breath. He realized that Derek wasn't just trying to steal recognition, he was attempting to destroy Julia's work, jeopardizing her career and reputation. This level of malice far exceeded anything Marcus had imagined. As he stepped outside to put away his broom, Marcus thought for a long time. He knew he had to intervene, but not directly yet. Observation was crucial. He needed to understand the motivations, the complicity, and the impact of each action. What he had seen today confirmed a painful reality: betrayals were everywhere, but the loyalty, patience, and resilience of the silent heroes were even stronger. That evening, shedding his janitorial uniform and donning his CEO suit, Marcus made a firm decision. He could no longer remain a mere spectator. He would devise a plan to protect those who deserved it, expose the manipulators, and restore balance to his company. Justice had to prevail, and he was prepared to act with intelligence and precision so that his unsung heroes would finally receive the recognition they deserved. Marcus Jefferson entered the company that morning with a new feeling. He was no longer just an observer, but a strategist. Every conversation he had overheard, every gesture, whether subtle or subtle, would allow him to restore balance to his empire. His concierge incognito was no longer just a mask, it was his best weapon for understanding, planning, and acting. As he swept near the marketing department, Marcus considered the best way to protect Lily Harper and Julia Benson while thwarting the underhanded schemes of Derek Collins and Karen Wallace. He knew that revealing his identity too soon risked provoking fear or mistrust. No, he had to act subtly, like a chess master anticipating his opponent's every move. In the cafeteria, he overheard an unexpected conversation. Julia was talking with Kevin, the young developer. "I'm exhausted, Kevin. But I can't let Derek succeed. If I do my job properly, he's the one who will be exposed," she murmured determinedly. Kevin nodded. "You're not alone. If anyone tries to hurt you, I'll be there." Marcus felt a surge of pride and respect. These employees were courageous and loyal, and he owed them the protection they deserved. He mentally noted every detail of each person's alliances, skills, and weaknesses, preparing a precise plan of action for his return to his visible role as CEO. As he headed toward the finance department, he caught Derek and Karen plotting again. Marcus knew he had to find a way to neutralize their schemes without creating chaos. He made a mental note: every falsified file, every manipulation, every attempt at discrediting them would be exposed at the precise moment, the moment the evidence was irrefutable. Then he went into the lobby, where Robert Daniels quietly organized collections for the homeless and coordinated acts of solidarity. Marcus realized that these altruistic acts were the true heart of his company. The silent heroes weren't the ones who shouted or manipulated reports, they were the ones who, behind the scenes, did everything they could to ensure the company remained a humane and fair place. At the end of the day, Marcus put away his broom and sat down in his office. He mentally sketched out his strategy. Observe for a few more days to accumulate all the evidence. Protecting and valuing the silent heroes at the moment opportune. Expose the manipulators with irrefutable evidence. Rewarding genuine efforts to inspire the entire company. Shedding his janitorial uniform and donning his CEO suit, Marcus felt a newfound confidence. He knew that justice could be restored, but only through patience, intelligence, and precision. He acted not out of vengeance, but out of balance, protecting those who deserved it and righting unseen wrongs. That evening, as he gazed at the city illuminated by thousands of windows, Marcus understood that a leader's true strength lay not in title or power, but in their ability to understand, protect, and inspire those in the shadows. And he was ready to embody that strength. On the 8th day of his incognito, Marcus Jefferson sensed that the moment to act was approaching. He had observed, understood, and developed his strategy. Today, he would lay the first stones of change, subtly but effectively. As he swept near the main meeting room, he caught Lily Harper frantically rearranging documents for an important presentation. Marcus silently and discreetly placed a small note on her desk. "Your work never goes unnoticed." Lily looked up in surprise, but no name was written. Marcus smiled inwardly. This small encouragement, anonymous for the moment, was already sowing respect and trust. Then came Julia Benson's moment. Marcus had learned that his crucial project for an important client was in danger of being sabotaged by Derek Collins. By placing a key file on her desk, he subtly slipped in information that countered Derek's manipulations, ensuring Julia would pass her report and prove her competence. Meanwhile, he watched Robert Daniels coordinate the collection for the homeless, distributing blankets and clothing with remarkable humility. Marcus mentally noted each heroic gesture, knowing he would reward these efforts at a strategic moment to inspire the entire company. But it wasn't just about rewarding, the manipulators also had to be neutralized. Derek Collins and Karen Wallace, confident in their plans, suspected nothing. Marcus had gathered enough discrete evidence, emails, conversations, and notes left by vigilant colleagues. He knew that when the time was right, their maneuvers would be publicly exposed, with a precision that would preclude any defense. At noon, in the cafeteria, Lily and Julia discussed their respective plans. Marcus, hidden in a corner, observed their camaraderie and mutual devotion. He realized that loyalty and support created an invisible network of strength, capable of overcoming all selfish ambitions. At the end of the day, Marcus put away his broom and returned to his CEO office. He considered the next steps. He now had to orchestrate the recognition of the unsung heroes and prepare the exposure of the manipulators. Everything had to be done with subtlety and intelligence, so that justice would prevail without creating chaos. That evening, Marcus looked out at the city from his office. The lights twinkled like urban stars. He felt ready to transform his company, to restore value to those who deserved it, and to establish a new balance where integrity and quiet courage would finally be recognized. On the 9th day of his incognito, Marcus Jefferson sensed that the moment of truth was approaching. The silent heroes had been observed and discreetly supported, the manipulators identified and their plans recorded. It was time to prepare the revelation that would transform the company. As he cleaned the hallways, he watched Julia Benson finish her report with admirable precision and passion. Marcus knew Derek Collins had tried to sabotage her work, but thanks to his strategic interventions, Julia was going to shine. Marcus felt an inner smile. Merit was finally about to meet recognition. In the main lobby, he ran into Lily Harper, who was helping a client solve a complex problem. The young woman had no idea that her CEO, disguised as a concierge, had been observing everything and had planned a way to highlight her efforts. Marcus mentally noted Lily's patience and professionalism. She embodied exactly what the company needed to value. But the most crucial moment came when he headed toward the finance department. Derek Collins and Karen Wallace were working on their latest act of sabotage. Marcus, hidden behind a pillar, discreetly pulled out his phone and made copies of the incriminating emails and documents. He knew that, at the right moment, this evidence would reveal the truth beyond any doubt. That afternoon, Marcus organized a surprise meeting under the guise of a briefing for senior management. All employees were invited, and Marcus, resuming his role as CEO, took to the stage. His gaze swept over the assembly, lingering on the faces of the silent heroes, Julia, Lily, Robert, and others he had observed from the shadows. Today, I want to acknowledge something I've neglected for too long, he began in a firm, clear voice. There are employees here who work every day with courage, dedication, and integrity. Some of you are the unsung heroes of this company. And it's time your value was recognized. Murmurs rippled through the room. Loyal employees exchanged astonished and grateful glances, while the manipulators tensed up, sensing that something was about to slip from their grasp. Marcus continues. There are also those who have tried to cheat, manipulate, or discredit their colleagues. Your actions have been observed and documented. The company cannot tolerate deception or selfishness. The evidence is clear, and we will take the necessary measures. An icy silence fell over the room. Derek and Karen exchanged a panicked glance, while the silent heroes felt a mixture of relief and pride. Marcus had not only revealed the truth, but he had restored justice and highlighted the true values of his company. At the end of the meeting, Marcus made a gesture for Julia, Lily, and Robert: promotions, rewards, and public praise. Applause filled the room, and the atmosphere changed instantly. The entire company seemed to breathe differently, as if an invisible weight had been lifted. That evening, Marcus returned home with a light heart. After 9 days in the shadows, he had uncovered the truth about his employees, restored justice, and laid the foundations for profound transformation. The company was no longer just a place of numbers and reports, it had become a place where integrity, courage, and loyalty had their rightful place. On the 10th day, Marcus Jefferson entered his company with a sense of fulfillment. 9 days of observation, learning, and incognito action had changed his view of leadership. Today, he was no longer just the CEO of a successful company, he was the guardian of its culture, the protector of its unsung heroes, and the guarantor of justice within his company. Upon his arrival, he was greeted with smiles, appreciative glances, and murmurs of gratitude. Lily Harper, Julia Benson, and Robert Daniels now had all the recognition they deserved. The promotions, awards, and official encouragement given at the meeting the previous day had transformed the atmosphere. The company breathed a new life, imbued with respect, loyalty, and solidarity. Marcus headed towards the finance department. Derek Collins and Karen Wallace, surprised and taken aback, had no choice but to accept the disciplinary measures. Marcus, firmly but without undue humiliation, outlined the consequences of their actions, severe warnings, increased monitoring, and an evaluation of their role within the company. Balance was restored. Then Marcus turned to his silent heroes. He took a moment to observe them, every gesture, every smile, every determined look. He understood that their strength lay not only in the work accomplished, but in their ability to inspire others, to maintain integrity, and to create a humane environment within the company. In the main hall, he saw Robert Daniels distributing blankets to the homeless, Lily patiently helping a customer, and Julia organizing a complex project. Marcus approached and said, "I want you to know one thing, your work, your sacrifices, and your loyalty are the true strength of this company. You are the pillars that support our success, and I will do everything to ensure that you are protected and valued." The employees around them applauded spontaneously. The transformation was visible, the company was no longer just a place of productivity and profits, but a community where respect, loyalty, and humanity guided every action. Marcus returned home that evening, his heart filled with satisfaction. He had discovered that authentic leadership wasn't just about managing, directing, or punishing. It was about observing, understanding, protecting, and inspiring. His employees, whom he had seen up close in their daily lives, had become partners, heroes, and the very essence of Jefferson Technologies. As the city lights twinkled through his apartment windows, Marcus smiled. He knew the coming days would bring new challenges, but he was ready. He had learned that justice, loyalty, and gratitude are not abstract concepts, they are built, nurtured, and protected with vigilance, intelligence, and heart. Jefferson Technologies had been transformed. And thanks to those 10 days incognito, Marcus Jefferson had also changed. He was no longer just a CEO, he was a fair, inspired leader deeply aware of the value of every life within his company.